Okay, we're on, man. We are recording. All right. So today we're going to talk about how societies have religion. So this, I must say a couple of things, right? So I don't support or not support any religion. As a sociologist, I see religion as an institution societies have developed over time. It's just a incredibly powerful institution. But there are also some peculiar things about it that so about religion. It's not one religion or another. It is about religions altogether.
Mhm.
So the first thing we'll do is let's define what is a religion. So religion is a belief, right? It's not belief. It's not a religion. Religion is a belief system. So
Yeah,
how would you define a belief? What do you think? What do you think? How would you define belief?
probably something like I believe it's probably like something that you always like have at like the back of your mind, like that's like shapes how like
It
it,
shapes,
it
yeah.
shapes how you do stuff in life.
It has a lot of power to shape your behavior. That's one piece of religion, right? So
Mhm.
belief here is whatever you hold to be true. That's why we will mix religion with culture and tradition
Yeah,
to go hand in hand. Belief is whatever you hold to be true. Religion is whatever that is, that whatever you hold to be true, whatever that you're holding, right, is religion. And there are variations to religion. There are all sorts of definitions. All right. One definition is, it's like I said, what a society will develop a system to make sense of something. Let me explain something. So usually it is the unknown. And the unknown here is what will happen to us humans in general. When you look at religion and study all the religions, one of the conclusions you'll come up is these are stories that people hold to be true that will happen to humans and some animals upon their death. When we die, what will happen to us? And usually students at this point is like they want to know what is my belief or what is my religion. I often say I will not tell you, and if you remember or you care long enough, at the end of the semester, you can ask me and I will tell you what that is. Okay? So until then, I'm really successful if you never get to find out. So I'm fascinated with religion and I'm fascinated with belief system, right? Belief, religion is a form of belief. Belief means you hold something to be true. Religion is a set of what? Something society has created. Okay, here's a simpler definition of religion, right? Uh, a set of rules, right? Usually written by a man, not a woman. A man, usually the man is referred to as a prophet. And the prophet, let me stop. Right. Sorry about the little disruption. We're back to belief in religion. All right. So when you define religion, one way people religion, when I explain this, when I do some of the lectures in institutions like a religious institution, one of the ways I record it, I define religion as a man, a book, you follow the rules or you don't, you go to hell or heaven. It's generally one definition of more famous religions like Islam, Christianity, two major religions. But this one is hard to that little definition I just told you would be really difficult to fit in other groups. Like if you took Buddhism, you'll go, wait a minute. Or if you took Hinduism, they'll go, wait a minute, this don't seem to fit.
Mhm.
And if you take other religions, new religions, it just certain things won't fit if you look at it through those eyes. A prophet or savior, whatever you want to call it, book, and then follow, don't follow, hell, heaven. That formula don't seem to apply in all human societies. It applies to a lot of large human societies. All right. Um, here's a couple of things. There's a little diagram I draw. Let me see if I can go back to this diagram and share my screen with you. All right, you should be able to see a white board. There it is. You see that? All right. Okay. So if a couple of ways to look at it. One way to look at it is old religions, right? Newer religions that come along on top of it. And that's one way to look at all religions, like old to new, right? It's one way to look at it. Clear my drawings. Okay. The other way to look at it is old, because these guys still practice their religion, right? And then new meaning 2,000 years old, right? You see a lot of people practicing within these 2,000-year-old religions. And then some really brand new 100-year-old religions. Okay? And you can imagine in due time, there'll be religions that comes along. We won't talk too much about these guys. And then, so here within this major religions of human societies, there are 3 religions. Can you tell me what they are?
The 3 major ones?
2 major. Judaism, that's 1.
Christianity and Islam.
In fact, Christianity came first, right? Islam. Okay. Right, let me go back to my draw. Okay. So the definition where there is a person involved, right? Who's the person here?
Jesus.
Redo, clear, erase it. The person, oops, undo. Hey, I like that. I'm getting used to this. The person here would be Jesus, right? Okay. Oh, get used to this. What happened to my S? Muhammad. And then, what about here? What do you think?
Isn't it like Abraham?
They're waiting.
Oh, still waiting. Oh.
Well, let me erase this and do it again. All right. Okay. Well, RP. Okay. All right. Let me stick to my draw. All right. Still waiting. The way I want it to be a draw. Okay. They are still waiting. Right? For them, it's Jesus. And then here it's Muhammad. What are their books called? Do you know?
Yeah, the Torah, the Bible, and the Quran.
That's right. You're good. Why do you know all of this? Because you listen to Smook. The Bible. And the Holy Quran. Right, I have a reason for that, and I'll come back to why. Why I put al. Right, we call the Holy Bible. So algebra comes from that.
Yeah.
What else? Yeah, algebra comes from that. This al means holy. Algebra. I think it's what algebra eventually came. There is, what else do we have? Al Jazeera, the newspaper. And then there is Al Qaeda, the crazy group. All right. Okay. Go back to my drawing. They use their book. There you go. They use their book. That's their book. That's their book. This is their book. So now the reason these are somewhat new, this little big group is new, right? It's very interesting. Do you think they all refer to each other?
Yeah.
So one of the exam question I have is this, right? Does the Quran mention Jesus?
Yeah, Jesus is a prophet in the Quran.
Right. He is mentioned like 28 or 29 times. Okay, so that's one big, I think it's an exam question I have, right? Is Jesus mentioned in the Quran? All right. So you believe, don't believe, right? You believe, don't believe. Maybe I should have written the book first. You believe, don't believe. Hell and heaven, right? Hell and heaven. Forgiveness, if you believe you get forgiveness. All the shit that you do. Sorry, I shouldn't have said that. All the sins that you do. And if you don't believe, you go to hell, right? That's the model. Now, if you look at all religions, and then they all claim what? They all claim, where am I? Let me do my text again. Yeah, they claim single God. And then you can imagine why this group, they all started in the same place. All the holy places, meaning the prophets went there and they did a lot of the work, they're all about the same place. So you can imagine why these three groups fight. And fight and fight and fight and still fighting. Probably will keep fighting for a long time to come. A long, long, long time to come. And that's the way it's going to be for some time. All right? So how many variations of Christianity do you think exists?
I'm actually not sure. It's probably like
Tens, 20s?
I think it's in the tens, but it's probably more.
There are hundreds of thousands of variations to Christianity that exist. You remember when you came to the school here, right? When we were studying, we learned that the pilgrims came here for religious freedom.
Yeah.
Right? They wanted to practice anyway. They wanted to practice that made sense to them. Some of them did some strange things, right? And some of them didn't make it. Some of them burned witches on the stake. Here are a couple of jokes, not jokes to make you go ha ha, make you go interesting. One is there is a cliche that when is America most segregated? They say Sunday morning because that's when everybody worships. There is something called a black church and a white church. Like really, there's a Hispanic church. There is a Korean church. Somehow other labels around culture or traditions and religions seem to fit into the idea of God, who presumably, you know, in this world, it's a male, right? It's so he had created all of us to be brothers and sisters, but we separate ourselves under nationality, who is our lead person, right? Which book we follow, and we separate ourselves with that.
Mm-hmm.
So if you think Christianity have that many variations, what do you think about Judaism? Do you think they have variations on that? 1 second, let me pause. Let me see who this is. Hello? Uh-huh. Hey, listen. I'm in the middle of a class. Call me back in about an hour. All right. Okay. All right. All right. Let me turn the ringer off. All right. Sorry about that. I thought it was a student. How do I turn it back on? So resume, stop, share, no. Um, okay. Closed caption. Are you there?
Yeah, yeah.
I think I'm recording. Your screen sharing is paused. Oh, I messed up. Okay, resume share. I pressed the wrong button, so I'll have to edit that out. Okay. So we are still being recorded, and I'm not able to tell where I am being recorded. Can you tell? Is there anything on the screen that tells you
It says recording.
where?
Like on the top left.
Top left. Let me see. Okay. Pause. Okay. I'll figure that out. Okay. Eventually, someday. All right. So let's go back. So I'm still being recorded, right? So I need to edit this before I post it. Okay. Bada bing, bada boom. Okay, where am I? So, okay. So how many variations do you think these guys have? No.
With Judaism, Islam,
Yeah. Well, how many variations for these guys?
uh, with Judaism, I think Judaism and Islam is not as many as Christianity.
Not as many, but boy, oh boy,
Yeah,
they
they're like I feel like they're like just like different type of interpretations.
different types of interpretations, different hierarchy, different status. Who's a better Arabic speaker?
Yeah, yeah,
I know in Saudi Arabia, the color of your skin comes into play. The Southeast, like folks from Pakistan and Bangladesh, are not as equal status with the Middle East Muslims. It's just all sorts of variations. Even in Islam, you don't hear too much about it, but there are a lot of people
yeah,
who have their like Wahhabis as Shia and Sunni big
yeah,
fight.
yeah.
They'll kill each other over it. But within Shia and Sunni, these are the ones you hear about. There are the Wahhabis, and there is a range of religion that comes along with it, or expressions of that religion that comes along with it. All right. What do you think happened in the old religion? These guys are still around. They didn't go away, right? They're
Mhm.
still around. They still so India is one home, China is another, right? So some of the things these guys do, right? I need to draw a tree, so this little thing is going to be a tree. I'd like to draw a tree. That's a tree. Okay. All right. So these guys basically pay attention to five things. It has come into play now with the coronavirus. Do you know what they are? Oxygen. They pay attention to our oxygen, the air we breathe, the ground we walk on, the five elements, which is the air, the earth, the sun. They pay attention. A lot of fire ceremonies are involved. They pay attention to the sun. They pay attention to water. That's my water droplet. There you go. They pay attention to water droplets. I can't draw very well, can I? I'm getting good at this. Pay attention to water, the air. So the basic elements that keeps life going, right?
For the tree.
For any life.
Yeah,
In
yeah.
fact, the tree. What does the tree do? What's the function of the tree?
Function of the tree is like
Function of greenery is what I should say.
I mean, trees put out oxygen.
That's right. They clean the carbon dioxide and put oxygen back in, right? So
Hmm.
that's what that is. So they will worship the five element. In fact, the way these arguments they'll make is, if all trees died, what will happen to humans and other species?
They would die.
They will die. But if all the other species, a lot of them will die. Say just humans, right? If all humans died, what will happen to trees?
There'll be more trees.
They will be just fine. They've been around since the beginning, so to speak.
Yeah.
Right? We are the ones who came recently. Those trees have been around since all the chemical soup that was just right. They came around and they've been existing right along with dinosaurs and all these creatures. So what about if all oxygen is gone, we are gone, right? But if we are gone, is oxygen gone? No. Here's an 80-20 peculiarity with that rule, right? 80-20, there's about 20% oxygen in the air, and there's about
It's like 8% nitrogen, right?
yeah. And similarly to the earth, there's about 80% water, about 78% water. Our body is about 80% water.
Mm-hmm.
They're very, very in tune to these things in a strange kind of way. No sun, we're in a lot of trouble. Like one of the extinctions of our species on this planet was when the sun was blocked. So the early kings were called sun gods, the Ra, and they had a lot to do with the sun. They worked with the sun because they knew no sun, keep the sun happy, because if the sun is blocked, many things will die. So these are old religions. I know a lot about religion, so if you have questions about any one of these, please ask. I go around giving seminars on religions. Ask me anything. You will not offend me. And remember, my goal is not to convert you to any one of these religions. My goal is to get you to think about these things from a large perspective, from a societal perspective. All right, so one of my exam question is, why do some religions worship the sun, air, water, the tree? I think they are an expression of God as well. I just answered, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then another exam question is, Jesus mentioned in the Quran, true or false? That you knew already. Another exam question is, what is similar between these three religions? Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. What is similar? They all talk about one God. These guys will talk about one God. They say, yeah, they have a gazillion expressions, but it's still one God.
Yeah.
And these guys will say there's only one expression. In Islam, actually, any expression of God, they find it very, very offensive. So they go around breaking faces of early or other cultures that make faces to everything. They'll put a face on a rock, put a face on a tree, and worship it. But Islam finds that very offensive.
Mm-hmm.
So Judaism is a little interesting one. They're still waiting for their Messiah. Jesus came along and said, I am the Messiah. And then they put him on the cross saying, well, prove it. That's the historical end of Jesus, Christianity, and how it all came along. All right. Let me move on with this. All right. Why? Here's an exam question. No. I should tell you about modern religions. What do you think modern religions do? Just brand new modern religions. Name me a few that you can think about.
Like what's the span? Like the last 30 years or something?
Last 30 years, sure, will take 30 years, maybe even 100 years. It's a religion called Baha'i. It also came out of the Middle East, actually, interestingly. There are other religions that came out of the Middle East that's somewhat new, are Zoroastrians. They are old religion. They worship fire and they do a lot of things. Zoroastrians. And then in India, religions are born every day. Different teachers. If you go to these old religions like Hinduism and Buddhism even, they'll ask you, hey, where's your book? They'll say, what book? You cannot write about how wonderful, great God is in one book. It's not going to be enough. And then people go like, what? And then if you go to these guys and say, hey, who is your prophet? What do you mean who? There are hundreds of them. You might be one. There might be more coming in the future for the times. So they'll say the prophets are many, 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 many. And then this is a kicker that makes a lot of people in this group go, whoa, that's kind of crazy. I don't get it. It's like, what about hell and heaven? They say, what do you mean hell and heaven? It's nothing to do with hell and heaven. You go join the cycle of the life. You go become food for the tree so they get eat up. So they're done. They'll talk about rebirth. You come back as another species sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So they'll talk about that. Then that's the reincarnation process that they talk about. What else? I think here the Christians, the Catholics especially, have an intermediate space. You don't have to go to hell, heaven right away. You have a little hold spot. I forget the name of it, where you get to people who are still alive, still get to pray for you, so you get to go to heaven.
Isn't it called like purgatory?
Yeah, purgatory. Thank you. The new religions, the Zoroastrians, the Baha'is, they say they're very old. Baha'is are very new. And then there are churches that take into old religious values, right? These churches are fascinating. They are about environmental movements and all that. And of all of these, about 20% of the societal, if you take a group in a society, about 20% of the people in a society, right, don't like any one of this. They tend to be atheists. Atheists are like, I don't want to talk about God. A lot of these guys are oftentimes called atheists because they don't spend time talking about this God. They don't even talk about the creator. They talk about creation. So they don't spend much time about the God at all. Like they'll even say, who cares? And so these guys will often call them pagans. They'll call them, they're going to go to hell. They are savages. All sorts of names have given people in this world because they do peculiar things. They don't follow these. So, and they don't even talk about God. What else? These guys are new religions that come up that talk about, they kind of weave all of these in. Like I said, Zoroastrians perhaps won't fit in them. Let me erase that. Yeah. Oh, wow, I have to erase a lot. Okay. Right? Zoroastrians perhaps won't fit in there because they are somewhat old. They are fire worshippers, sun worshippers, as they would call it. And there are churches today that are, some synagogues even, take into all the philosophies that are here into their own religious beliefs. There is also, I call that a new religion because a lot of Christians don't call them a religion, are the Latter-day Saints. They're known as LDS. They used to be called Mormons. So, Jesus apparently showed up in Utah and gave a new set of commandments on how to live in Utah. So they are out there. They're relatively new. They have interesting worldviews about how the world will end and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Questions for me?
Not any right now.
Okay. Whiteboard saved. All right. I am going to clear all of this and do clear all drawings. Okay. Now I'm in a new arrangement here, right? Am I still recording?
Yeah, it still says recording.
Okay. I wish I knew. Let me throw meeting controls. All right, never mind. So now we have, let me do this. There's something called a civil society. What is a civil society? I should just erase that, clear my drawings. What's a civil society, man? Somebody has come in. Let me see. There's Khalid. Hey, Khalid, hang in there. What is a civil society?
Isn't it basically like a one that has like a set of rules and order?
Rules and order, organized societies, governments, right? Civil society. And then there are religious societies. All right. So these two guys, all right, they do move. All right. There are religious societies, and then there are, whoo, there are civil societies. So these are modern societies, right? Modern, they have elections and all these things. They have rules written up and they make up their own rules to govern society. Okay? These guys go back to religion. Hence, it's a religious society. Most of the time, a lot of us govern our behavior by religious society, personal behavior in religious society, and we govern our public behavior in civil society. Even politicians are famous to say, my personal belief is this, my public belief is this. They will call it public belief. President Bush Sr. is famous for saying it. He actually said, personally, I believe, if a woman needs to have an abortion, let her. But publicly, I don't think that's a good thing to do. I'm like, wow. He was able to separate it. Maybe I should call this public. I could type it, but
Wait, what do you mean by public? Like
so
publicly, like it shouldn't be like a good thing, but
it shouldn't be a good thing. Yeah,
like if he like, so he's saying like behind closed doors they can do it, but like not putting
right.
out.
If somebody wants to do it, let them do it. That's what they're saying. Yeah, public. And they will say personal. Politicians know this separation incredibly well. And we still have societies that want civil society to be governed by religious societies. That's what Taliban wants, basically. Right? They simply want that. Now you would think like, surely we are not like that. Of course we are. I am erasing all the wrong things. Let me retype this really quick. Society. What's that? Khalid.
Yeah,
Man, how you doing?
good.
I confused you with Jabel for a minute. Okay. All right, we're back. So there's this confusion. There are people who think religious societies should govern civil society. What do you think of all the societies? Another way to call society now is culture would be a country, right? Name me the number of countries that use religious rules to govern. We have about 200 countries. How many countries do you think use religious rules to govern their society?
Probably like 150.
No, it's like 98 comes into play. There are like one or two countries.
Oh, so it's like
Pakistan doesn't.
so it's like 180.
We have about 193. I usually say think 200, right? It's easy to think. Of these 200 countries, we have maybe 2 or 3 countries ruled by religion. And one that comes to mind will be Iran. Even in Iran, they have elections. They have board of religious people who decide whether it is going to happen or not. Other societies don't. No other countries allow it. They use a lot of the influence of religion in civil societies, but they don't apply. One reason is there is no country in the world, there's absolutely no country in the world, right, that uses, that has completely homogeneous society, meaning everybody's one religion. That's one reason. But if you say religion, then which definition, which version, whose leadership of the religion are you going to follow becomes a big problem. A very, very, very big problem. A lot of kings in the past have used religious societies, but we just have decided we don't like him anymore. There are lots of religious influence. There is what's his name? His name is, I forget his name now. Judge Moore in Alabama kept the 10 Commandments in the courtroom, and people protested. And why is that? Why do you think people would protest 10 Commandments in the courtroom?
Probably because that's like it shapes like how
he's going to think. So they didn't want. What if somebody who doesn't believe in the religion goes to court for a crime they have written up in civil societies? Then you are not very sure anymore. So they told him to remove the 10 Commandments. He refused. So they removed him from office saying, well, you refused an order, right? Because but became the Chief Justice. But he lost after that. There were other things. He wanted to run as a senator after that, and then he lost to that. So he's still around somewhere. All right, I would have written this out, and then what is okay here and okay here. What is not okay in both? What do you think? There's some examples we have, right? And I'll talk about not okay in both, right? Killing somebody, murderer, is not okay here, not okay here. Does that make sense?
Mm.
Both societies say no, don't kill. But here it's still a little questionable. Why? Anybody knows why? We are okay if you're going to go to war, right? Some civil societies still use capital punishment, meaning you kill somebody, we're going to kill you, to tell other people killing is a bad thing, right? US is a classic example of that. All right, so okay, in both societies, one would be what? Okay, in both societies, tell me. Marriage is one. Both societies say, yeah, get married. We'll give you a certificate. And then these guys, I'll sign, right? What about these four? These two, right, are interesting ones. What's okay here, not okay here? Here would be polygamy. A lot of religions allow polygamy, right? Meaning you can marry more than one wife. There's only one or two societies that allow one or two husbands. We allow polygamy. In civil society, we don't allow polygamy, but it's an interesting one here, right? In the US, we allow you marry, you divorce, you marry, you divorce, you marry, you divorce. That's polygamy for me, right? So they call this serial polygamy. They call this, what is opposite to serial? I forget. Simultaneous polygamy. You can marry more than one. You keep your first wife. To some extent, a lot of societies, it is the first wife that will tell you, go marry somebody. I don't want to do the things you want me to do anymore. In fact, they will get a cousin, an uncle, looks like a plane, right? An uncle, a niece, a nephew, and say, hey, she needs a husband. You know, what you need to marry, you got the money. I don't want to do the things to you. So the first wife recommends the other spouses in a real big in our discussion, but they're not today. Not here. Any thoughts? Here's one. What about premarital sex? Civil society say whatever. Right? If we have a baby, we call it illegitimate child, right? We don't make a big deal out of it. Illegitimate means you're born out of law. Legitimacy legitimizes legislature, they all come in. A baby born here, they get mad at you. They really mad at you. So religious societies don't think premarital sex, having baby before marriage is a good thing. Capish?
Yeah.
Right, let me skip this one as well. Whiteboard saved, and then let me take a look. Make sure I've covered all the stuff I wanted to talk about. All right, I have. I'm going to stop. Rename. Go. Hold on, fellas. Okay, I am going to stop share. Get back, and then I'm going to. All right, so I'm back to recording. Like I said, I forgot to mention why. Well, we talked about why religion and politics don't mix. They cannot agree on one thing, right? Here's a piece. Where is it? What is the difference between cult and religion? Between church and cult? That's the way they put it, church and cult, because they kind of rhyme. But generally, religion and cult. What do you think?
Aren't cults like smaller though?
Cults are smaller. That's it. The only definition is is the size and the amount of acceptance. That's it. Early Christianity was like that. All early religions had that element of what's going on here. And then they grew, and then they became a norm. So the biggest difference between religions is size and so number of followers, and therefore number of acceptance, therefore what is normal. That is an exam question. So I will post all these exam questions in a format, in like a Word document, so all of you can pull it up and listen to the lecture and answer those questions. All right, I am going to pause it again.